Well, hello again. Back again with Thomas over here. Thomas, it's so good to. We asked that you're going to come back, and remember, we did tell all you people that I'd bring Thomas back again because there has been an enormous reaction to Thomas. Thomas, you've put up 5 videos on PfanderFilms on my channel, and you started putting them up about 3 to 4 weeks ago. So it's been up about a month, and I just went up just now and looked at the 5 that you put up there, and already almost 200,000 views. 200,000 views for the 5 videos you put up there. I've added 2 more that are expanding on what you introduced, especially on the Aramaic antecedents to the Quran, and that would add another 50,000. So we're talking about 250,000 people have been watching your material. I don't think I've ever seen these kind of numbers on PfanderFilm before. And remember, what we're introducing, Thomas, this stuff is not entertaining. This is not music or jokes or humor. This is straight academia. This should not be the stuff that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people should be watching, and not just within 1 month. In 1 month, 250,000 people are listening, are looking, and they're responding to what you're saying. And there has been such a response, so many good questions, such a great amount of feedback. And this is exactly what we've asked for. We want this kind of feedback. This is terrific. And I think, Thomas, you might be a little bit overwhelmed by so many, but what I have done, and I've asked you to do this at the very end. Remember, I said, we're going to bring you back. We're going to have certain questions. We're going to choose the best questions that are out there. And then I'm going to ask you these questions, and then you're going to respond to them. So I have a number of them here. I've sent them to Thomas. So Thomas, you have them in front of you. And let's just go down through each one of these, and we'll break them up into different segments so we don't get them all at once. Otherwise, we'll be here for the next 2.5 hours or so. And the first one comes from a fellow, and his name is, it's in Greek, so I have no idea how to say it. Can you read that?
Diodoros, yeah.
Diodoros. Okay. I was going to say that maybe, but so it's Diodoros. Thank you, Diodoros, for responding. And this is what he says. The obsession of the Quran with pure Arabic language is a desperate attempt to distance the text from any Christian or Jewish elements. So it was possibly added into the later text by someone with a Muslim mindset. Is this true? And basically what he is asking is this idea of taking an Arabic Quran in the Arabic language for the Arabic people, which you see that's repeated over and over again in the Quran, is something that was added at a later date. There seems to be an agenda here. Help us with this. What would you say that? Is there an agenda, or even what's the difference between the Aramaic versus the Arabic? The Aramaic text that we seem to be seeing is the Ur-Qur'an, or that archetypal Quran, and the Arabic text, the Quran that we have in our hands today. Over to you. Over to you.
Yeah. So I would say that's certainly a possibility, but I would not think that that's particularly likely. I think this proto-Qur'an already started out as this Aramaic-Arabic mixed language. So we are talking about the oldest third, roughly, of the Quran, and that's the way I see it. That's because the liturgical language of the time in the eastern parts of the Byzantine Empire and within the Persian Empire was always Aramaic. So no matter where you would go to church, it would be in Aramaic. Now, here we're looking at a document that was obviously written for Arabs. So when they go to church and they hear Aramaic, it's likely that the masses don't really grasp all the details. They were probably familiar with the language because it was so common, but they probably weren't really fluent in it. At least the majority wasn't. While the priestly class, the preachers, they would obviously know Aramaic. So I think the likelier explanation is that it's indeed a lectionary written, like to be read in church by a preacher, who would then speak in the language of the people, which would be Arabic. So that's why they would also stress this point. So this is in clear language written for you. But what's important to note is that this is not the same Arabic that we know today, because there's a lot of Aramaic in there. Those words that come from this religious tradition where there aren't any Arabic words to translate into, or which already so established that everybody understands them anyway. So it was the Arabic language for those specific people at that specific time, so that they could better understand, the gospel.
Well, so what you're saying, Thomas, I mean, this should not surprise any of us. This is quite well known. The Aramaic was for the aristocracy. It was for the educated. It was the academic language. It was the theological language, is what you're saying.
Yes.
It was for the priestly class. And so this is what you found in the seminaries, much like Latin became the language for the priestly class in Europe. You can even think of probably better example would be in Egypt, where you had the hieroglyphics was for the aristocracy, and only the aristocracy understood it. And then the Demotic was used by the working class. And when the aristocracy was destroyed, the Egyptians destroyed the aristocracy. They destroyed the language with it. And that's why when you look at all these artifacts coming out of Egypt, like the Sphinx and all these beautiful material that they have found, these obelisks, all written in hieroglyphics, they didn't know no one knew how to read it, because that language had been lost. The hieroglyphics had been lost until Champion, this French archaeologists came across the Rosetta Stone. Remember the Rosetta Stone, which had tax codes in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics at the top, and then Greek and Demotic. We knew Greek, we knew Demotic, and so by looking at the Greek and Demotic, they could then unpack and discover what the hieroglyphics alphabet. In the same way, in this case, you're saying this is what's happening in the 7th and 8th century. So the Aramaic, the theological language, was only used by the priestly class and the aristocracy, the people who were educated. The people on the ground.
I would say there are probably plenty of people who speak Aramaic, but not necessarily the Arabs who are the recipients of the Quran, right? So some of them might have a bit of an inkling, but by and large, they probably wouldn't be fluent in the language. So there are Aramaic people who obviously speak the language, in Syria and so on, but the Arabs, they probably didn't. So that's why they created the Quran.
Oh, great. So that's why in the Quran, this is the Arab Quran for the Arab people in the Arab language. That's why there's so much emphasis on that, is because of this very fact. Brilliant. Okay. So we're really talking about an evolution of bringing it out of the Aramaic and putting it into the Arabic. And that's why you then get as we're seeing, a change and amelioration. And of course, once you start putting into Arabic, can you then understand how that would then change the text? With all these different variations of where is it you put the dots, where is it, what words are you going to use, which one do you choose? Well, everybody has their own opinion. Going from there. And but again, what I want to stress is that this Arabic is slightly different because there are Aramaic words mixed in there, which people would have understood back then because it was written for a specific congregation, if you will, or a specific group of people, where the preacher would know exactly what they understood and what they didn't. So he would put in some Aramaic words that are well established, but by and large, it would be a clear Arabic for those people and not necessarily clear for the Arabs 200 years later. Okay, thank you. This is good. Theodoros, I hope that answers your question. Let's go on to the next one. This is Jay and Thomas. Over and out.